Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this discussion on a very important issue that divides and unifies Kenyans in this day and age. But first, I want to introduce you to the organization that has actually made this discussion possible. Freethinkers Initiative Kenya, which we refer to as FICA, is a non-profit organization that grew out of a desire to promote secular ideals in Kenyan society and governance, as well as mitigate some of the harm that religious extremists impose on society. FICA is composed of religious and non-religious secular persons who have seen the need to divorce religion from the governance and public conduct of the country. FICA is devoted to the ideal expressed in the Kenyan Constitution to respect the freedom of people to attend religious fellowship, as well as the freedom of people not to attend religious fellowship. While FICA recognizes the great role that religion has had in the development and evolution of our society, we feel that this very diversity is threatened when a majority or minority religious ideal is promoted in our laws and public governance, thus ostracizing and sometimes criminalizing persons who do not share these ideals, regardless as to whether these different ideals are of no harm to individuals or society. We believe religion should be a private affair between members of that faith themselves and should not be enforced in public space. Government has no obligation to insert religious morals and norms into public law, and neither should public behavior be governed by the norms of any religious persons. No idea should be above scrutiny, and no person should be automatically accorded respect simply because of their religious standing. It is this lack of questioning and lack of public scrutiny that allows religious leaders to get away with inciting opinions against particular groups, as seen in Mombasa. And it's this unquestioning obedience of religious thought that gives justification to acts of hooliganism and terrorism that we are seeing in the world today. FICA was formed to combat this unthinking obedience and this rather evident lack of critical thinking that has permeated both religious and political thought in this country. That's the introduction of FICA as an organization. Now, to get into our discussion, let me start off with a synopsis of one idea of how we think the God concept came about. For ages, mankind has wondered about his environment and has tried to make sense of it. Man observed that his actions always cause a reaction. Man observed the actions of the world around and sought to find the agent that caused these reactions. As man only knew man, he sought to enjoy the environment around him with the same qualities that mankind had. He looked around and presumed that the environment would work through the same motivations that man had. The wind thus would blow in anger, lightning would strike the leaders, and the land would bravely roar while the hyenas slinks away the cowardly man. When young, man is helpless. Babies need to be nurtured, taught, protected, and given a head start in life. And as such, the child will start off with a feeling of reverence and awe for these giant protectors who supply it with all its worldly needs. And sometimes punishes it when it does things wrong. As man grew up, the lessons learned to the extent that were passed down, and man in turn passed down those younger. This way, man assured survival of the spirit of its offspring. As man reached further, man began to meet with other groups, began to hunt together, plant together, and live together. In man's lifetime, we observe that man gives birth to man, dogs gives birth to dog, lion to lion, and even snake to snake. Nature will destroy all his efforts in a stroke, and this same nature will reward his hard work with food, shelter, and a comfortable living. In line with his own experiences, man began to think that nature deliberately does these things to punish and reward him for his deeds. Man began to adore nature with the same motives and emotions that man had. And since these acts affected him profoundly, man began to think that nature deliberately turns its eyes on his activities and rewards or punishes accordingly. such as by force or guile, killing or rendering powerless or helpless. Elaborate rituals were created around these ideas to appease or gain favor from these gods. Whole castes of people came up to act as intercessors between man and his gods. From the tribal shaman to the pope, their main purpose was to guess the will of the gods and how these gods could be cajoled, implored, or tricked into giving favor to the tribe and visiting calamities on the enemy. People were told the will of the gods by this case, and communities of like believers came together and prospered or failed. Religion thus became both a unifying and divisive factor in man's community. Religion is not entirely about evidence, but about community and faith. And most people believe in God as a result of these feelings. Faith comes largely through personal revelation and experience. Remember that the vast majority of religious people are believers, not because they have emotions that are clear in faith, or because they have examined and cited the evidence of God. They are religious because they were brought up to believe. The real issue about belief and unbelief has to do with the political and social implications of religious belief. Looking at it this way, the decision to base your life on beliefs which not only can be not true, but which on the balance of the evidence seem unlikely to be true, seems incredible or exhaustive. If religious believing had implications only for the individual believer, then it could be easily dismissed as a harmless idiosyncrasy. But since almost all religious beliefs have incredibly serious implications for many people, religious belief cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, be regarded as harmless. Indeed, a glance at the behavior of religious believers worldwide, some of them, makes it clear that religion is something to be feared and justified criticized. Beliefs can lead to mass beheading for miseducation, or the marginalization and victimization of gay and lesbian people, or a stoning of people for having different ideas, or even the bombing and banning of public places. It is for this reason that religious belief is just developed to require more justification than other claims. And it's for this reason that we initiated a discussion so we can justifiably look at the claims and evidence surrounding the evidence of God. Thank you.
It's okay for you? It's okay? Okay. Yeah, so the name is Michael Walweke. Yes, as you can see, I'm normal human being. Oh, hey, what is
That's a good generator. We have a generator. Yeah. We also have a generator.
What is the guy I'm used to? He's the one who does those KGB tricks. Put something and disappear. Should have gone to Moscow. Maybe not do it very well. Anyway, it's good that Pika has kicked off properly. When we came in, my colleagues asked me, okay, you can see you guys are getting organized. I say, yeah.
Of course, for me, I was saying, time was an issue. At least we started. Maybe it will not go on for very long because people have schedules and things like that, but I hope that we'll be able to achieve something. Samakula told us back there that the object of today's meeting is not to be right or wrong, to humiliate somebody, or to step on the feet and quash. That's not the object of today's meeting, which makes me very happy. It's causing me more problems. So on the introduction that Samakula has given, it's very good, but it's one-sided. I am a Christian, and I became a Christian at the age of 24. I don't know how many of you are younger than 24. And before I became a Christian, I was probably an atheist. I don't know how to describe that. But in terms of my love of religion and everything. Today, even as a Christian, one of the things I love most, one of what I think the Christians should learn, is Al Jazeera. Every time I watch Al Jazeera, and when I read the history of Al Jazeera, I am amazed at what these guys do. We know that the thinking behind it is, of course, funded by the Emir of Qatar and all that, the Al-Thanis. But what do? They give you an opinion, and then they say the other opinion. So in whatever we do here today, please make sure that you hear one opinion and the other opinion. Then you can have a balance, and you can make up your mind truly. My greatest fear is that the ills that Samakula has described here today, and I know this can almost set off the debate, show only one side of religion, but you forget a very, very important side. The other day, I asked a question on Fika Kenya. I asked you guys, what would happen if Fika, everybody today, 40 million Kenyans were in this hall today, and we all agreed there is no God? Do you know what would happen? Dr. Ludwig Krapf landed in this country in 1844. That's when the church was built at Rabai. Before that, we had a godless situation, so to speak, from a biblical perspective. What was the situation then? Immediately, religion goes out. Something becomes more important. My tribe, my Kolonweke, I am Kikuyu. If I decide I'm going to look at you whether you are Kikuyu or not, and you can't change that. The customs that we had before, Paul VB said about superstition, and a lot of those other things. If you remove religion, and you say only the ills of religion, what will remain, my friends, is a very big vacuum. And that vacuum has been filled before, and it has things to fill it even now, today. Mutahi Konyuga here is a very sharp guy. So the other day I wrote something on FGM, and he kept saying, tell us what is right with FGM, NKT. I kept looking and saying, oh my goodness. But there was a point I was communicating. The moment you remove Christianity, trust you me, and as I told OJ behind there, I was circumcised, and there were people who wanted to be circumcised alongside me. But they told you cannot be. And the reason why is because of Christianity. Nothing else. The moment you remove religion, even with the ills that Samakula has described today, you will find that many of you will not, I doubt whether many of you will live through the next 48 hours. If all Kenyans decided there is no God today, then we will decide what. Some people will make themselves God. Then they will realize, I'm smarter than this guy. So that means, if I'm smarter than him, then he does what I tell him. I have more money than him, so who is he? And I wipe him out. It's already happening. For many people who don't know, and this is what I keep telling my friend, not to deny, that we can be atheists. We can talk about it here nicely and cool. We don't have the billions. A billionaire atheist, what he does with his money, you cannot believe. A president is just a puppet. I work for a multinational. Multinationals are stronger than countries. The GDP of this country cannot match our revenues as a multinational. You understand? There's a lot of force for what can happen without religion. So even if you see one side, as Samakula has described, please don't forget there is the other side. And you must keep an open mind, because this path has been walked before. I think I've wasted my minutes. Kubai, did you have anyone who wanted to work before you go? Okay, maybe I don't know whether we have a chance to introduce them. Can I introduce them? Just I introduce your names well. I think I met you. When I start with Ithaiga Kamau. Ithaiga Kamau is a gentleman on the extreme right. Ithaiga is a trained scientist. He's a botanist. This is zoologist. Remind me. I know he has a place. Yes, he's a scientist. You can get from the old guys. Your wires have a safety issue. So he's we met a couple of years ago. We are in a Christian forum together. We fight a lot. Do not think that because people are in Christianity, they do not fight. I'm one of the people who strongly believes that Christianity should be reformatted. As it is today, it is actually not godly. There's hardly anything biblical that's practiced today. So that's Githaiga. He's a good friend of mine. So even though we are here to defend the religious position, does not mean that we always sit and smile and agree. But the thing I like about him is cool, he's calm, he's not like me. True, you know me, eh? He's very cool, he's very calm. He synthesizes his thoughts properly and puts them down. So he's one of our panelists today. Kubai Maingi. Kubai Maingi was an atheist before, for many, many years. Kubai Maingi walked into a hall like today, and that's why today may change somebody's life. I hope Kubai you have a chance to say one or two later in your presentation. Kubai Maingi walked into a hall like this, where there was a debate in the University of Nairobi, am I correct? Or somewhere where there was Christian apologists and some people opposing. And from then, in his midlife, he was 35. He told me he was 35. And he was an avowed atheist. He knows everything you guys know. And he had the facts right here. And today when I sit and listen to him, I'm amazed at how much a man can change. And he will tell you why he changed the way he changed like that. Those are our panels today. Kubai is a quantity surveyor. He does building economics. He's in the building industry. Githaiga is in training. And he's also a trained veterinarian. You may wonder what I do. I would let that remain a secret. But I've already told Kanana what I do and a few people. But anyway, I'm in human resource management. Yeah? So that's what I do myself. Thank you.
My name is Murage. I am a creative. I work in the advertising industry. I'm not here to really state my case because there's really not much to state in terms of, well, I'm just here to start and to continue the debate, the discussion. And there's some things that he said, which I took, one of the things that I took from him, when he said about Waterloo craft coming to Kenya. And when they landed in Africa and they found a godless situation, I think I really differ with that. Because I think in our African customs, we did have our gods. Just like the Greeks had their gods, just like the Europeans had their gods, just like everyone else had their gods, we had our gods. And what happened is that they just were able to convince us to take on their god. That's what I believe. Because before that, even the Kikuyus used to pray, Mount Kenya. And the white man never taught them to do that. Sorry, I'm not racist, I'm just giving a synopsis of how it was. But think about it like this. They had the means to come here to Africa and to come and tell us about their God, about Jesus. They were able to come and bring Christianity to Africa. And so was the Muslims. Most of them are religious. Let's think about it like this. They had the means. Let's think about it the other way. What about if we had the means to go to them? We would have taken to them our gods. We would have taken to them our culture. Because they brought to us their culture, to Christianity, to Islam. If we had the means, we would have been able to take it to them. Right? But we did not have the means, maybe because we were comfortable. I don't know. There are many reasons. As Africans, we were comfortable. We live in this big African plain, running around with monkeys and lions, and we were happy. Completely happy. We were not thinking about conquering life. So, for me, when I look at Christianity, I was born in a Christian home. I got born again about 19. Right? And I did believe all that, and I went through all that stuff, and it is a strong part of me, and I do believe a lot of it. But like you said, and I agree with you again, there's a lot of the Christianity right now that we have really needs to be reformed. I think what it is that we lost our way completely. And we now treat Christianity as, and something I said yesterday, we treat Christianity, we consider ourselves Christians before we consider ourselves human beings. How many people have done that? You stand up somewhere and say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu. Forget you're a human being first, before religion comes in. For me, I want to first be a human being and feel like a human being, act like a human being. And that is what controls me. I am a human being, not religion. And where I want people to start thinking is, without God, like you said there would be a problem. I also tend to differ on that, because I think without God, then we would have to look for something else to replace that. Yes. It could be bad, it could be good, like you were saying. Some people might become gods because they have money. Yes, it could happen. Or maybe we would start looking for something else. There is a possibility. But I believe that we probably have, in many ways, we've taken the whole concept of God and we've completely changed it as human beings to suit us. To suit us and our needs and our egos and everything. And that is where I completely differ with the fact that, and ask myself every day, is there God? Do we make him up so that we can look after our own egos, our own self-worth, our own fears? Because most of religion, and something that I've actually seen being a Christian, most of Christianity, most of Christians actually are driven by fear. They're not driven a lot by rational thinking and discussing and being able to sit down and just say, hey, why do we have a God? Most Christians will never ask that question. Why do we have God? Is there a need for God? Most of them will just say, because you were born in it, you found yourself there, you just say, you know what? My parents were Christians. I was brought up in a Christian home. I was baptized, all that, got born again. So I just believe because I found it. So it's come over many centuries. So who am I to dispute it? And that's where we are. I feel that's where we are, especially in this day and age. And that's why there's so much going wrong. We can point out so much going wrong in the Christian world, or the religious world, and so much going wrong in the case, in the anti-theist. We can say all that. But if we stop looking at religion and God, as human beings, can we be able to have a common ground that is not God? Can we be able to do that? A common ground, like you were saying. If we remove God, can we be able to have a common ground that is not God? It's a question. It's a question. You're open to...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have to apologize. My voice is not very good. I have the flu, but I will do my best. Now, I think it was Socrates, or one of those clever fellows of old, who said that if you want to know the right answers, you must begin by asking the right questions. And I think what we need to do now is probably take a step back and ask ourselves the right questions first. My good friend here, I am trying to get that name right, but I am very poor with that. Is it Sinakura or Sinaka? Whatever. In his presentation, if I understood him correctly, and I may be wrong, what he did was he presented to us a God. And the God he presented to us, as far as I could understand him, is a God who has been created by man. And he went through the paces of how this God evolved and eventually became a God. And if the God we are discussing is that one who evolved as man developed, debate over. I will agree he doesn't exist. So we don't need to discuss it anymore. Let me say something else. There are many gods. His is just one. At the last count, the Hindus had 300 million of them. It is therefore impossible to discuss the existence or non-existence of God unless we begin by narrowing down which God we are talking about. Because I will agree with you that Shiva does not exist. Neither does Zeus of the Greeks. So if we are going to have a meaningful discussion, we must narrow down, and we can take one day and discuss whether Shiva exists. And we can take another day and discuss Zeus. For me, or the 300 million Hindu gods. But if we are going to discuss the existence of something, it must first be defined. And so, for me, my position, the God I would like to talk about is the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition. And if you would like us to discuss that God specifically, we can discuss that God. But we can also discuss the other gods. But my position on all the others would be that I agree they don't exist. And so, the question that we need to ask is, for my purposes, does the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition exist? For my friend Borage, the question is not whether we need God. We have not reached there. The question is whether he exists. Whether we need him or not, he could exist, and we don't need him. What we need to do is narrow down the discussion to a subject that can be handled in the time we have. And if you agree with me, then I will ask that we debate the existence or non-existence of the Christian God and leave the others out. And I am not dictating this, I am suggesting. Because that one I am comfortable with, I can deal with that one. The others, I would just throw up my hands.
Good afternoon. You have heard his position. Well, I'd say this initially. Why do we have to discuss the question of the existence of God? Someone will ask you, why are we discussing does God exist? Why can't we discuss does Santa Claus exist? The reason is, what is the relevance of this God in our society? If it is a matter of asking the right question, then that should be the right question. What is the relevance of God in our society? So that we can begin our discussion. So, how many gods do we have, as I said? Millions. But there is a reason why, when we say God, we are specifically referring to the Judeo-Christian God. The reason is popularity. Now, honestly speaking, the Judeo-Christian God is not the first God to have ever come across in history. Now, the first gods ever were present in the pagan religion. That was yes, there have been many gods. And to know what God is important, there are many aspects that we have to look at. Now, the most important aspect is history. Now, who was the first one among these 300 million? These are the right questions that we are asking. One, the relevance of this God, and two, which was the first one, if there are indeed millions of them. Now, I told you the oldest form of worship was paganism, which has been existed since 30,000 years before the Common Era till around the 18th century. Now, when I'm talking about 30,000 years ago, before the Common Era, I'm talking about the age where the most sophisticated piece of technological equipment was a stone. Now, after that, we can now look at if those were the first gods. What about the first religion? Organized religion. It is not Christianity. It is not the Judeo-Christian system that is the first religion. No. Hinduism actually is. And it has been existent for, I think, 1,500 years before the Common Era. Christianity comes at around the 6 years before the Common Era to around 30 years after the Common Era. That is when Christianity evolved. So I'm talking about thousands of years before Christianity. Now, Judaism in itself came after the Hinduism. You see? Now, the relevance of this Hinduism and the pagans here is not really of water. So we shall look at why should we stick to the Judeo-Christian. It is the most influential religious group on the planet. In conjunction with Christianity and Judaism, it marks at least 40% of the human population. So when we ask, does God exist? We are asking the important God, not Santa Claus, not the pagan gods who have been in existence for 30,000 years. No. It is the God who is the most favorite among this population. Now, moving on from the history lesson, let's talk about the first prophetic religion. The first prophetic religion was called Zoroastrianism, and strangely, the principle that it had, it is the first to ever mention the concept of heaven or hell, individual judgment, kila mtu na mzigo wake. That was Zoroastrianism. Now, a few years after Zoroastrianism, that is when Christianity emerges. And 600 years later, the Muslim world emerges. Now, as we tackle the concept of God existing, we are looking at how this popular religion influences our society today, and whether the influence is positive or negative. In short, what is the place of God in our society? If at all, it is a question of, hey, are we talking about a God who created ourselves or a God who created us? Let us look back in history. This God who we purportedly created ourselves, when does he arise in history? And what about this God whom we did not create? Where does he arise in history? And for my friend Wanyuike, who blatantly pointed out that imagine a world where everyone says there is no God. What will happen? Well, there is a historian by the name Will Durant who, during his explorations, came across a particular class of pygmies. Now, these people were devoid of any kind of belief. They didn't even have the simple, how they call that, superstitious belief. They buried their dead without any ceremony. They didn't have any ancestors of sorts, no organized religion. But they weren't slaughtering each other like goats. The community was stable until influence through colonialism and neo-colonialism came in. Okay? Now, what about the atheists who are the main non-believers? Remember, atheism is not something that came in. Non-belief in God is as old as religion itself. So, at this juncture, the question is, if at all you hold particular relevance to your God, what place does it hold in our society? If the place is trivial, I mean, if politics goes on, people are being burnt in churches without any mysterious intervention, what should we do if at all he exists? So it is not a philosophical debate debate trying to determine if God exists or not. It is the effect that this existence has on our society. That is my position. Thank you.
How are you? You know, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. So you'll excuse me if I go out of topic. My friends here invited me to come and discuss the existence of God, and I was telling them that I am not sure I want to have that discussion. Because I think the world has more problems than that kind of a discussion. But my friend Mandy here suggested we discuss the existence of the Judeo-Christian God. And Martin has just said, no, let's not discuss the existence of the Judeo-Christian God. Let's discuss the consequences of his existence. Did I get that right?
Not entirely.
Sorry.
Well, the question of the existence of God is indeed relevant. And yes, the question of the Judeo-Christian God is the most relevant to be discussed. However, the path that we should be using to discuss this concept is not an abstract path, but regarding the relevance this Judeo-Christian God has in our history and in our society.
You see, the reason why I have a problem with that, I had a question, is because if he doesn't exist, then we're not really discussing his existence. We are discussing whether we believe in him. So you can exist, but I do not believe you exist. And those are two very different things. And those are two very different things. I can discuss the existence of God, but I can also discuss the belief in the existence of God. And those are two very different things. If he exists, then he exists. There's nothing I can do about it. If I don't believe in this table is not here, the consequence of me knocking against it will quickly prove to me that it exists. Those are very different, and I need to be clear what we are discussing here. Number one, I do believe that God exists, but I also know that his existence is not based on my belief. If his existence was based on my belief, then I can create him, and I'm creative. And in which case then, it's just an exercise in philosophy. The real question therefore is, does he exist or not? If he does exist, then we begin to discuss what do we do with him, or rather discuss what does he do with us. You see, those are two different things. Because his existence means that he has ability to function in our lives. In which case, we don't like what he does, we need to find someone to go to him and tell him something. Tell him we don't like the way you are behaving in our society. You see, we can talk to him if he exists. If he does not exist, then that is of no consequence. So we need to be very clear what we are discussing. So I think he also mentioned something about when he existed. But then I will correct you. Maybe you meant when you began to believe in him. Because if he existed, he always existed. Now, this is the God I believe exists. The God I believe exists whether I believe in him or not, number one. So whether I believe in him or I choose not to believe in him does not make him fall off his throne. Number two, the God who exists created the heavens and he created the earth. He created time, he created discussion with hungry people. Hungry people don't have time to think about the existence of God because their experience is too urgent for that moment. However, when you are well fed, you can discuss many different things. So, let's agree we are well fed. That's the reason why we're having this discussion. Number 3, the God who exists actually takes action in our society. And if we don't like his action, there is very little we can do about it. Until we believe he exists and therefore approach him. If I don't believe that this man exists, I will not go talk to him, whether he exists or not. But when I know he exists, then I can approach him. Now that's the question we are here asking. If he exists, can we approach him? And therefore we can take him to him and tell him, the way you are behaving in our society is not right. And then he can answer back. So I used to be, let me give you a little bit about myself. I was brought up in a Christian home. But then somewhere along the line I decided that religion, or I didn't decide. I thought, very similar to what he's saying, that if this God exists, then there shouldn't be the things I'm seeing in society. So for a while, I struggled with the existence of God. And therefore, I began to come up with my own theories about what must exist outside God, which is quite similar to what Mr. SS came up with. But then I came to the conclusion that there must be something in existence from where everything refers to. Because if we keep talking about truth being relative, then there's a problem with that. Everything can be related to everything else. So there must be an objective reality of truth. And so I started looking for the objective reality of that truth. That's the God I'm talking about, who is an objective reality that his existence remains. And what he chooses to do, he does, whether we believe he exists or not. I could go on and on, but I will finish with this one point. The God who I believe exists has introduced himself to us. He has introduced himself with number 1 with the name Jehovah. Then he introduced himself as the self-existent God. He's called I Am. So his name, when he introduces himself, he says, I am who I am, because he is the self-existent God, the only self-existent thing that exists. Number two, the God who exists has spoken to us. And he has spoken to us through one man called Jesus Christ. And so when we want to deal with him, we approach him through Jesus Christ. And now we can now begin to ask, was Jesus Christ the Son of God? And that's another discussion for another day. So we have now narrowed down to Jehovah the self-existent and Jesus Christ his Son. Let's discuss their existence.
One question for the last speaker, the previous one. It says that there must be an objective reality. Now, where has it been written that there must be this objective reality? For you to come to that conclusion, how did you just tell us your sequence of thoughts, and if that objective reality is indeed true?
Who asked that question? Are you objectively real? Are you objectively real?
Yes, but I think, okay, Vasco, are you objectively real?
It's relative.
So it's relative or relative or not? It depends on what I perceive, isn't it?
The theory determines what you see.
Vasco, the question is, are you objectively real or not?
It is relative.
I guess I can't answer that anyway. Because objective reality really just says that as I walk in this direction and I throw off my hand, someone will respond. Do you think he'll respond if the head went further? Do we then
There is one problem, however, with that thing. To determine objective reality, you must be able to determine it outside the person who is actually perceiving it. In order for you to say that something really is objective, you must have other feedback loops other than your own senses to define it.
But the feedback loop right now is his exclamation when I kick him.
And that is a subjective response to his
That is an
subjective.
objective reality. Okay, I don't believe this thing exists. Are you a better friend before? Yes, that's not subjective.
Well, Sam, let us not misinform the audience. When we talk about reality and if it is objective, it is not a question of whether something will respond in a particular way when there is a particular stimulus. No. When we refer to objective reality, we are looking at the essence of a particular object, regardless of what we think about it. Now, I know an astrophysicist. Well, he told me this story. During his first lecture, he came in with a piece of paper. It looked like a piece of paper anyway, with particular lines on it, and he presented it to his students and asked them, "What do you see?" They said, "There are a bunch of lines." Well, 6 months down the course, when presented to the same line with the same picture, they gave a different result. What? The lines that they saw were a consequence of an experiment that shows radioactivity in particles where, okay, it's a bit complex. What they saw was electrons moving and drawing particular parts on the paper, particular parts, which can be represented. So when you are asking if reality is objective or not, it is not the response that it will give, but what do you understand about that object? And regardless of what you know, does the nature of the object change? That is objective reality.
Vasco, what we just did here, and I hope it's not misinforming the audience. I see many people are burning to ask questions. I don't know how you will fix it. But what we just did this afternoon, we turned this all into a laboratory. And we have confirmed that your belief in the existence of Vasco is immaterial. You can confirm it if you hit the guy. If the guy screams, aha, then there is Vasco. If you don't believe that this thing exists, it's immaterial what you believe. But if we make it drop, SS will cry out in vain. That's objective. It's not about abstract concepts. We have just proven it before you ever realize that Vasco exists. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Andrew Amadi, and mine is just to bring in a little bit of housekeeping, particularly with regard to definitions. Anything that we're going to discuss is going to be confined or defined to language. So, if it is not objectionable, I would like to use a neutral source, which is dictionary.com, to try and define some of these things rather than use argument within trying to define it. So here we're talking about objective reality. The key word to me is reality. If it is not objectionable, I would like to read very shortly what the dictionary defines reality as, and then we can continue within that arrangement. There are actually 8 definitions of the noun reality. Number 1, the state or quality of being real. Number 2, resemblance to what is real. Number 3, a real thing or fact. Number 4, real things, facts or events taken as whole. State of affairs, the reality of business world, occasionally to escape reality. 5, the philosophy, something that exists independently of ideas concerning it. Number 2, something that exists independently of all other things and from which all other things derive. Number 6, something that is real. Number 7, something that constitutes a real or actual thing as distinguished from something that is merely apparent. Number 8, in video, in reality, in fact or truth. actually brave interference, but in reality are coward.
Okay, we'll respond to this one very quickly, but I want to use this time to be a bit mischievous. There's still one minute. Who is No.1 here? Posting, recently he posted something on Fika, and I told him, now you hit it on the head. It's what Gedaliah was saying. The issue is whether people have bread and butter, and whether they are eating. And I loved it when Gedaliah put it like that, because truly, he who was telling me today, Michael, why are you dragging you? This guy, what kind of questions are these? When, as he said, when he's dealing with people who are dying in Sudan, the issue of whether God exists, he says that is a muscle hierarchy of needs. I don't know what the place is, but it's really one of those questions that anybody can be able to tell you that it doesn't matter he exists or not. The issue is what you do with the existence, and I think Pascal mentioned that. Objective reactive, I think you want to say that we have not yet begun the debate we thought we came here for. Go ahead.
It seems to be a bit. I will just repeat what Elijah said. We cannot discuss the effects of a God who does not exist. He must first exist for us to discuss the results of his actions. So, what we seem to be doing is moving forth as if he exists, and then taking a step back and claiming he does not exist, that he is not objectively real. Let us make up our minds. Are we discussing his existence or the effects of his existence? That way the debate can take some direction. Because if he exists, we shall then restrict ourselves to the consequences of his existence. If we don't know that he exists, then we ask that question first, answer it to our satisfaction, and then deal with the consequences of that decision. But now we do not appear to have a categorical position on the question: does God exist?
Coming back to what, sorry, I just forgot your name. Elijah posed. He posed a very important question actually about when he's in Sudan, it doesn't matter whether there's God or not. That is not an issue. Okay? I really believe that. So that's what I come back to. Do we need to believe in a supernatural being for us to exist? If when we are dealing with crisis all over the world, people are dying, planes are crashing, Al-Qaeda, all that stuff, we don't need God, right? We want to deal with the issue. So, do we need God at that particular time? Do we really need Him?
You see, the question of whether we need him or not does not affect the thing we first believe whether he exists or not. If he exists, then whether we need him or not is a different discussion.
Okay. Mine is a comment, so that we can first put it in line, especially in response so that they are very clear. By virtue of your definition of God in this aspect, is whether it is a God of the Hindus, like you're saying, whether it is a God, to ask they are all the same. The God of the Christian God only exists only in the Bible. If you remove the Bible today, there would not be any God. There is nothing to show for it. It's not any different to all the other gods, including the Hindus. Probably we believe, or there's evidence to show that in a few, maybe 100 years, we will also not spoken of just like slavery or any other medieval events that happened before us. About what he was
is a point where they said that the world has more problems than God. God has done nothing to cure those problems if He was really responsible for our well-being or our pass of peace. When you are sick, you don't go to the church or you go to where you are confident you're going to feel better. Where you know there is evidence to support that this has worked before and that has not been the church to be hospital. And the hospital is not a result of, yes, that's the religion who later on came along and financed the hospitals and put them in place. It is not religion that has been able to. If religion was not there, yes, the science and hospitals would have been in place. Also, religion and God are not the reason why we are moral. No. You don't hit your friend simply because God has told you not to. It's because if we hit you, you will not like it. So the basic symbol of being human is what you don't want to be done to you, you will not do to others. Even animals have that principle. If an animal is not hungry, it will not chase you. If it is hungry, just like you will also be hungry and chase a chicken, if you are below that food chain, you will also be chased. That simple. Has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with religion. Just like you put it straight, the people in Sudan are hungry, and all they think about is food. Whether or not it is God. After all, He forgets them. He doesn't give them the food like He gave as the one who has given you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Peter. Okay, the basic question of debate today is, does God exist? Unless I read wrong, we are not discussing the effects of God on society or whether morality is of God, and I think the moderator should keep the debate, the proposed topic. The second thing is this: the debate still is not whether the Judeo-Christian Islamic God exists. The debate is whether God exists. For me personally, the question of the Judeo-Christian Islamic God, in my opinion, that is settled because the literature that proposes that God is mythological. So what I'm interested in is for our panelists to table some evidence that God exists. The universe is capable of bringing itself into existence from a natural cause. So there is no footprint of God at the beginning of the universe. There is also no footprint of God in the emergence of human beings. The facts of evolution are there for everyone to see. So my question to the panelists is, you say that God exists. Table some evidence that we can discuss. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Now, my name is Laura. There was a question that came from this side about the existence of God. And the question was, it was actually clear. He asked, if we remove God from the equation, what happens? You answered and you said, we will look for something else to replace Him with. You don't answer that. What have you replaced God with? That's my question.
The books have read the Bible?
Most of it.
Say again?
Most of it.
Most of it. The Bible has 66 books. The Bible has 788,000 words. The Bible has 30,000 verses. I think the two books you will say you read or your material is way extensive over the Bible. And I will not go on into I will first leave it for Kubai to. I'll take 1 minute, then Kubai can take another minute. However, this is a mistake that people make. They look at the preachers, and obviously we cannot say there's something wrong. If you ask yourself today, why is Christianity, and I know I'm like Christian, forgive me, my two brothers, why is Christianity a weekend?
faith. The guys who died in Garissa, those were 17, and there were 13 women, and 4 children, maybe 2 men. Why? What were the men? Well, I'm not insulting anybody, but if you have the same influence in the mosque, all those will be men. What's the difference? Because men are logical. Men think logic, the left brain. Most of the men today can see that the preachers are not preaching anything that's logical. It doesn't add up. That's why Christianity does not attract the men. Why? Because people don't want to read the Bibles for themselves. When a man stands, that's why I ask them to read the Bible. If you read the Bible truly, then I want you to question some of the questions that you have. Some of the answers, you'll find them there. But moving on, combined with
asked for evidence for the existence of God, and we are in agreement that we are talking about the Judeo-Christian God. This is a big topic, but let me give you an answer in 2 or 3 words. 1, desire. 1, desire. There is no known case in the universe of demonstrable design without a designer. Let me just give you my answer. Secondly, morality. The human being is a moral animal. And if you listen to everybody talking here, we are all talking about the oughts and the ought-nots of life. There can be no moral law without a moral law. I'm still. Secondly, Stephen Hawking, go and read him again. The conclusion of his book is this, that at that beginning, there must have been an intelligence directing the course of events. Stephen Hawking.
We mentioned the issue of we could not see any evidence of design without a designer. I will agree entirely. However, there is one thing that has been forgotten. We do not see any evidence of design without a human design. We have no instances where we have seen an extraterrestrial or anything else that designs. However, we have seen evidence of what looks like design to us. For example, if you go to the seashore, you notice that when water flows down, the stones seem to always be arranged in a specific order. The smaller ones further, the bigger ones closer to the further away from the shore, the smaller ones closer to the water. It does look like design, in spite of the fact that it is created with absolutely no intelligence, with simply nature all in its course.
She asked a question about what I replaced God with in my life. And I said very clearly from the beginning, I am a human being. And the thing about us Christians, and which I still am, we tend to put our religion, our Christianity before our humanity. So for me, what I did was I put my humanity before my religion. I put my actions, my responsibilities before anything else that is emotional. That's why he said, the like said to him, I know you pick me back. I don't need to break. I know you pick me back. And if he doesn't pick me back, he's probably a coward. That's how much you're going to do. Not because God has stopped me from doing it. Have I answered the question? Okay, we'll continue.
Evidence of the design devoid of the human input. I am convinced, or rather it is a matter of record, that all scientists, atheists and non-atheists alike, agree on one design of the universe. Therefore, if there can be no design without the human input, we must conclude that man designed the universe.
There you go. That's logic for you. Logic. Straight logic. It's A plus B equals 2. Straight.
I want to get into the answer and bottom of that. Yes, the conclusion from design is that humanity designed the universe. If the universe can be demonstrated and proved to be designed. But let's mention something else.
Mr. mentioned that morality is one of the evidences of the existence of a God, right? Well, he says that there cannot be a moral law without a designer for the moral law, someone to set the universal standards of morality. Well, instead of looking up there, let us look here on the planet. There are very, very many cultures that do not pay homage to the specific gods that you propose as a designer. But these communities, whether they have Christian beliefs or not, have a moral code. Now, we have to look at human beings to understand our ideas of morality. Well, if you go to, let's say, like South America, the Amazon, the Mayans killing people every once a week, cutting out their hearts, wasn't immoral. It didn't beg the question. But calling a king a woman would make you look like a serial killer. Whereas here, when I kill you for whatever reason, I may be persecuted by the law. But if I call you a woman, you will call me a woman. You see, it is not a greater evil to do particular things here than it is there. Morality is diverse. That is the point I'm trying to prove. Now, for we to know if there are any standards of morality, we should ask ourselves this question: do we need a standard of morality? And if yes, what standard should it be? Should it be dependent on ourselves, or should it be dependent on our God? Now, if this God decides that he will kill all Canaanites because they have refused to worship him, he is supposed to be our standard of morality, then there is a problem. So whether God exists based on morality is a fallacious argument. Morality cannot prove that God exists because morality is not standard in itself. However, you have to prove it to me that this God exists first, so that you can say, no, this is the morality that arises from this particular God.
Language. The sun will come out 6:10 tomorrow. For those who are in Masa, the sun will rise. Hold on. Talking about design and order. And the sun will go down, irrespective of whether you believe it, whether you don't believe it, or whether you believe in morality, or whatever. So what am I saying? The existence of order in the universe. For those of you who know the speed at which we are going right now, if you drive a car at 200 mph, what is the speed that the sun must, the rear are going right now to make one complete revolution from the time we started this debate to where we are in terms of the speed? How fast is that moving? Doesn't it over the mind? But what I'm saying is this: you cannot speak about not having any proof outside the human. If the sun will come out tomorrow, then it doesn't depend on a human being. Jim, you told me the name is Kenya. For me, I think on Fika Kenya, what Muraga you're trying to demonstrate about humanity is what I see you doing on your website, on the things that you do. Irrespective of religion, I see you serving people, I see you interested in going out to look for people with epilepsy, I see you moving out to things irrespective of religion, which I think is what I think Muraga you're trying to say we have a basic standard of being human to one another. How much I wish that, if nothing else, Fika could be more involved in showing to one another in practical ways, like you do. Thank you.
To you. One is that earlier on the team proposed that you believe in a God who intervenes in the world. And you went on and said that the question of whether God exists or not is not relevant to people in Sudan and dying of hunger. You believe in a God, understand that God does nothing about it. Two, you go on to propose that there is order in the sun rising after every 12 hours. Do you ever wonder if you are so magnificent as to be able to set up such kind of a design that the sun will rise, that you cannot respond to the 60 women and children killed in Tanariva? Two, so the question of morality. Do you ask yourself that if today it is proven to you that your Lord Jesus Christ did not exist, that all that has been a lie, will you go home, stop loving your children, stop loving your wife?
Good afternoon. First of all,
I think there's echo from that. There's what they call the feedback thing. So I think.
First of all, I want to ask you that you believe that you are a Christian God, and from your name, I can tell you agree with that. So until 1850, you're trying to tell me that our ancestors were so immoral, they did not have any code of morality or ethics. Because until the Christian God came, what were they doing? But our existence here shows that they had a stable society. So what do you have to ask yourself why?
The discrepancy in the different moralities. And this is not an original question. It was asked in a different manner. And the question went on like this, my friend. In some cultures, they eat their neighbors. In other cultures, they love them. Do you have a preference? You now. In some cultures, they eat their neighbors. In other cultures, they love their neighbors. Who would you like to have as a neighbor?
Yeah, am I allowed to explain? Yes, I have a preference. Am I allowed to explain?
Yes.
As long as you do not tell us that God helps you to eat your neighbors. That's you can justify that.
You would have a preference. Yeah?
Yes.
By having a preference, you would be saying that one morality was superior to the other one. It's this position of man. You cannot make that statement without at the same time stating that you are saying this morality is inferior to this one, or this morality is inferior. This is why you prefer it. Isn't that the reason? The reason why you prefer one morality to the other one is because you consider one right and the other one wrong. True?
That is a trick question.
Okay, some more questions.
Make your point.
I am answering three people. You.
Make your point. Make your point.
To me, agree that you are choosing between moralities.
There's a difference.
Yeah?
There's a difference.
But no preference. Do you have, and my question is very specific. Do you have a preference? One morality, and there is another one. You must have a standard. And that is where God can see. That is the Christian position. You will respond. Let me say something else. About the Bible. You talked about the Bible. God does not exist because it is written so in the Bible. It is written so in the Bible because it is true. Actually, if you look at it logically, the Christian position is God existed before man.
Let there be light. So he started with, what did he say there? Anybody else? So we are discussing the existence of the sun or the existence of light.
We want to ascertain whether the Bible is a conclusive proof of the existence of God. And in this case, we are looking for fallacious statements in the Bible. If the statements are found fallacious, then we can say the Bible is not a conclusive proof of it.
Which particular statement is fallacious?
I'm looking at the results of the statements. Now, it says, God, chapter 1, verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. That is the first creation. Creation 2, separation of water above and below. Gathering of water, creating sun, moon, and stars. So, before we reach the fourth day of the creation of the sun, yes, there was light. Please elaborate to us the source of this light. And how is it possible that evening can pass and morning come before the sun itself is created?
Oh, that's what you're asking. You see, the first verse says let there be light. So there is light. Where did the light come from? Where did the light come from? The Bible says, God says let there be. So which God are we talking about? We are talking about the creating God. The one who is creating. And because he's a self-existent, he is the one who created the light. So when he creates the morning and the evening, it proves to you that he's a creator. But now we are not discussing the existence of God, we are discussing the light.
Okay, I do agree with the issue here seems to be more or less, how do we define evening and morning without the sun and evening and morning? However, it is in my personal opinion that this would be deviating from our basic theory. Because much as it has been put as one of the evidences leading to God, the Bible itself, with 66 books and